In this video, we'll learn how and where we can begin rendering using Arnold inside of Maya. All right, great. So after installing the Arnold plugin, the first thing you're going to need to do inside of Maya is enable that plugin. Let me show you where you do that. If you look under the Windows menu and then Settings and Preferences, you'll find the Plugin Manager. Now, let me go ahead and pull that over into my screen I'm recording on here. There we go. And if you scroll all the way down inside the Plugin Manager to the very bottom, you'll see this mtoa.mll. This is the Maya to Arnold plugin. So go ahead and enable that. You can see I have mine set to auto load when I launch Maya. We'll go ahead and close out of that. All right, step one is done. We've enabled the Arnold plugin. Now, the next thing we're going to need to do is enable the Arnold renderer to be our default renderer, or the render engine that we're using. Now, we can do that inside of Maya's render settings. We'll just go ahead and click on that little button there. And let's come over here and under the render using drop-down, let's go ahead and select the Arnold renderer. All right, great. You'll see that several tabs popped up here inside render settings. We'll actually be looking into some of these in upcoming videos. But for right now, let's go ahead and close out of render settings. And we are ready to render using the Arnold renderer. All right, great. So let's take a look at what we have in our scene here. You can see if I zoom out, we've got our robot asset, which is actually a piece of a larger scene we're going to be using throughout this course. And I have sort of this backdrop piece of geometry just to sort of catch some light. And I do have a Maya point light here. So we do have a source of illumination. All right, great. Now, the beautiful thing about working in Arnold is that if you're comfortable rendering using Maya's native render view, we can absolutely do that with the Arnold renderer. So let me just go ahead and set off a full frame render here. And you'll see that my render view opens up, and this actually renders out using the Arnold renderer inside of Maya's native render view. So we can use the native render view here just as we normally would, and we can use all of the features that come with it. We could come in here and enable the IPR, and we can use that. As a matter of fact, the IPR is one of Arnold's strongest features. It's very, very fast, and it's something I prefer to use just to get quick feedback on what I'm doing inside of my scene, whether it be with a material, whether it be with a light, whatever the case may be. So the IPR is absolutely compatible here inside of Maya's render view. Let me go ahead and turn that IPR off, and I'm going to go ahead and close out of the render view for right now because I want to show you another feature that Arnold offers. If we look under the Arnold menu here under experimental, you'll see this M to A render view, this Maya to Arnold render view. I'll go ahead and open that up, and you can see it immediately sets off an IPR render. Now, this is officially classified as experimental, but I can tell you that it is very close to being moved outside of this menu. So this is a feature that Arnold offers that is very, very powerful and very cool. So there's some functionality here inside of Arnold's render view that Maya's render view just doesn't have. So let me go ahead and show you a little bit about this here. So first thing you can select is which pass you're looking at. You can see I'm looking at my beauty pass, but we could drop this down and you can see there is an ID pass here as well. Now these are default passes, but if we had any kind of AOVs configured for our scene, those would show up here as well. Let's go ahead and select the ID pass here, and you can see basically what we're looking at is object ID information, and I'll just shrink this down so I can show you that we can actually come in and click on the different objects inside of the render view, and those objects get selected here in the viewport behind. So I can come in here and select things inside of Arnold's render view. I can come over here and make attribute changes, material changes if I need to. I can come over here and find the material that's applied to this. In this case, it's just a Lambert 1. So that is what the ID pass will do for you. Let me come over here and select the beauty pass again. Great. Now to the right of that, we have our camera drop down. You can see I'm just using the default Maya cameras. So we have a perspective shape, top, front, and side shape cameras. We can switch to any one of those and look at that here inside of Arnold's render view. The next button here is for the channel information, so we can look at red, green, blue information or alpha information here, whatever the case may be. Now to the right of that, we have a couple of play controls. These aren't related to animation. These are actually related to stopping and starting the render. So if we were to stop and then restart, you'll see that the progressive refinement actually takes place pretty quickly with this particular scene. Now, just to sort of clarify, there are a couple options here under render. We have continuous updates, which is actually this button here. So if we turn that off, you can see continuous updates are not going to be happening inside of the Arnold render view. We also have the ability to turn off progressive refinement. Now, if I turn that off, you'll see that this renders out using each individual bucket and slowly revealing our image, which in my opinion there's really no reason to turn this feature off unless you just prefer to have it off. Using the IPR is kind of the preferred workflow when you're working inside of Arnold. So I will typically leave both of those two default options turned on here. All right, great. So let's talk about another feature that Maya's render view offers that's really helpful, and that's the ability to save a render and then compare it to subsequent renders inside of the render view. Arnold's render view offers that as well, but it refers to them as snapshots. So if we were to come over here and click this button, you'll see here that this little slider appears. Now, this won't really be apparent unless I change my camera position, so I'm just going to come over here and orbit, kind of look down on the robot just a bit. Fantastic. Let me just drag this back over into my recording area. So you can see we have another render that's taken place here, and what we can do is we can actually compare and contrast between the two renders just simply by dragging this slider. Now, if we want to delete a snapshot, all we need to do is simply click on the trash can button, and you can see the slider and the snapshot both disappear. Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and reset my camera position back to where I had it here. Just a few simple taps. There we go. All right, great. Now, another feature that Maya's render view offers is the ability to render out regions. We can do that with Arnold's render view. It calls them crop regions, and you can tap on this button right here to specify a crop region. So if we wanted to draw one, say right there. Now if I were to come over here and move my camera, you can see that the only area that's being updated is the crop region. So I'll come back here and reset my camera position. Now there is a tiny little X up here in the top left hand corner which will allow you to clear out a crop region just like so. And after doing that, we're back to rendering out the entire frame. Now this LUT button right here, this accesses the LUT and color correction options, and I don't want to spend a lot of time right now inside these. We're going to do a video very shortly about linear workflow inside of Arnold, and we'll talk more about this information at that point. But instead, what I do want to show you here is the ability to use what Arnold calls 3D manipulation inside of its render view. So you can see I've been bouncing back and forth between the viewport and the render view to make changes. What is really helpful is if we were to come over to the view menu and make sure we have 3D manipulation turned on, what we can do now is we can navigate around in our scene and move the camera using the Maya keyboard shortcuts. So if I was to just hold Alt and left click, you can see I'm moving my camera around inside of Arnold's render view. And we can come in here, maybe frame a new shot completely without ever having to go back to our viewport. So this is a very cool feature, something that I definitely enjoy using inside of Arnold's render view. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you a little bit about here inside of the Arnold render view is the ability to use debugging passes or debugging shading here inside of the render menu. So if we were to come over under debug shading, you can see it's disabled right now, but we can come in and choose any one of these passes under debug shading. Maybe it's the occlusion we want to debug. We want to just look at the occlusion. So we could render out just the occlusion using this debug pass. Now this is actually pretty cool because maybe you just want ambient occlusion for this single frame. So we could come in and just simply save the image out under the file menu. And we could use this as an ambient occlusion pass. We could come in here and we could use any of these auxiliary passes, maybe a wireframe pass. If we want to overlay this on top of a composited beauty pass, just to maybe make sort of a portfolio image that shows both the render and the topology. We could use this for that purpose as well. So a lot of different debug shading passes here that are available to us. Feel free to explore these if you'd like, but this is another feature that the Arnold render view offers that Maya's render view just does not. So with that said, in this video we've learned how to enable the Arnold plugin and also set Arnold as our default render engine. We've also learned about 2 different locations where we can execute renders here inside of Maya using Arnold.